Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
You meet someone online and there's this instant connection. It's amazing how much the two of you just seem to click. They live somewhere far away and there's some plausible reason they can't travel to meet you. They tell you they're in love with you and you feel optimistic for the first time in a long time. They have a successful career, yet somehow they need money from you to solve a short-term problem, always with the promise of paying you back. Time goes on and they need more money more urgently. You've started to see the cracks and begin to wonder whether they've been lying this whole time. All of a sudden it hits you. You've been scammed. Fool Me Twice is the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, a woman who was drawn into the dangerous world of sweetheart scams. After a trip overseas to meet a stranger, a dangerous altercation in a Manchester hotel room, and thousands of pounds lost for good, she's here to tell her story. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Ozcast Network, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Today I'm here with Emma Pike. Thank you so much for joining me today, Emma.
Thanks for having me, Jules. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here, even though we're breaking the Hong Kong confidential rules because I'm supposed to interview people while they're in Hong Kong. But during the coronavirus, I've had to start interviewing online, which is very different from in person. And you actually lived in Hong Kong for 13 years. So I think that you're a Hong Konger, so I'm not really breaking the rules.
Hong Kong's still home for me.
Hong Kong's awesome, isn't it? Emma, tell me a bit about what you were like as a child and where you grew up.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Sydney, in Australia. I grew up at the beach in Bondi. And I was probably a little bit cheeky as a kid. I was very sporty, very entrepreneurial already at the young age. And yeah, just very happy-go-lucky. I was one of 5 siblings and we just hung out. Most of my childhood was playing sport. So sport and getting into trouble.
Absolutely, like mine, like most Aussie teenagers.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were entrepreneurial. So for my listeners out there, Emma is a really successful entrepreneur who mentors people and she runs her own business called the Farmers Market. What sort of things were you doing as a teenager that were entrepreneurial at a young age? Like, were you out washing cars or walking dogs or
No, I tried to take shortcuts there. So I wasn't a fan of hard labor. At the age of 9, I started my first business. I used to go down to Bondi Beach a lot with my brother and we'd go surfing and stuff. And we used to see a lot of tourist buses. We'd go by and at the age of 9, I thought, okay, all these tourists are getting off. They're going down to the beach. They're having a look around, but then they're just getting on the bus and leaving again. Because in the old days, there was no souvenir shop. So I used to collect canisters from the film shop where you used to get your film processed. I used to collect like a big garbage bag of canisters and I'd go down to the beach and I'd fill them all with sand. And then the buses would come piling up on the beach. The tourists would go down onto the beach and have a little look around the beach and fill the sand, and then they'd go to get back on the bus and I'd sell them a film canister full of Bondi Beach sand for $1.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. And people actually bought that.
Yeah, it made a fortune.
That's brilliant. That's
So
brilliant at 9.
At 9, yeah. So that was all good until my mum found out, and then I had to give all the money to charity. So I donated it to church.
Oh, that's hilarious. What are some of the key skills that you learned as a teenager, do you think, that have set you up for success in life?
Yeah, I think growing up playing a lot of sport, you have a big network. So I think networking was a key. I could walk into any tennis centre, any squash centre, any game of rugby and instantly make friends just because I played sport. So I think networking was the biggest thing that I learned growing up, and just learning to talk to people, talking to adults as a kid was really important. So I'd always join in the business conversations with my parents, even though I had no idea what I was talking about. But I thought I run my own business at 9. I could have a chat with the adults about it all. So I think networking was the key thing that I learned growing up that I still do today in business.
What about some of the personality skills that you had? Like, did you need to have drive and tenacity and self-confidence, and were you an extrovert and things like that?
Oh, for sure. I think I'm an introvert extrovert, if there is such a thing. So I love being by myself and I love being in my own time. But when I'm out and in a network situation, I turn into a different person. I turn into an extrovert. I turn into someone who wears their heart on their sleeve.
Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that, because you're an introvert masquerading as an extrovert. Because I
Yeah.
met you for the first time at an event in Hong Kong and I felt an immediate connection with you. I felt a real warmth and a sense of comfort because you're Australian, and just that sort of instant connection that you get with some people. I felt that with you. So that's just a natural sort of innate aspect, isn't it? That's something you can't really build, do you think?
No,
Or
no, I agree. I get so many people I have one-off conversations with that have asked me a question. We just had a general chat and they walk away and they come back to me going, oh my God, we've got to be such good friends. And I'm like, well, actually, it was just a normal chat that I have with most people.
there's something magnetic about you, definitely. There's something magnetic about you that works in business. And I think that's just something that is there and you can't manufacture that.
Authenticity as well. I mean, I don't say anything I don't believe in. So a lot of people do. So I never pretend I'm someone who I'm not. And I think that goes a long way with business as well.
Yeah, I think that is really important. And I think I sense that from you. And definitely that Australian straight shooting, tell it like it is. That's a characteristic that we both have, which serves us
Yeah.
well, because
Yeah.
we do come across then as genuine, which is nice.
Yeah. You know what you're going to get.
Did you know when you were a kid that you wanted to go into business, or did you want to be a
No.
school teacher or a pilot? Or
I wanted to be a tennis coach.
oh, did you?
So, yeah. I used to play a lot of tennis. And so I quit school when I was 15 to become a tennis coach. So I didn't finish school.
Tell me that story. How did you convince your parents to let you quit school?
Not too difficult, actually. So I've got 3 older siblings and 1 younger, and the 3 older ones and the younger one are very intelligent. So they're doctors and lawyers and accountants and everything. And then it got to me, and my mum and dad always knew I was a bit different. So I want to be a tennis coach. And my mum said, look, that's fine. We know you'd hate school. I hated school. I faked getting my appendix taken out to get out of school. So there's a lot of stories about that. At the age of 15, I was like, no, I'm done with this. I want out. I'm going to become a tennis coach. And so my mum's like, okay, you can, but just get something to back yourself up. She goes, go to secretarial school, learn how to type, and then you can go and do your own thing. So I said, okay. So I went through secretarial school, and that was the condition. I could leave as long as I did that. So I learned to type, and then I was out, and then I became a tennis coach. And then I realized very quickly that when it rains, tennis coaches don't get paid. And I like money. So I've always liked making money, and you don't make money when it rains. I figured I'd need to do something else to make a bit of money. And then I started my first business when I was 16.
16? What was that?
I put up posters all over Bondi about typing. It was called Emma's Typing Services. And I'd type uni papers and theses and things like that for $5 a page. And that's all I did. So people would come over, they'd drop their papers over, handwritten in those days, and then I'd just type them all up and give them back on a file or print them out for them.
What a great idea. And did you get quite a bit of business from that?
We did, because I worked out it was quite good. So I thought I'd need to get other people to start typing for me. I wrote to a Sydney radio station, Today FM. So I wrote to Wendy Harmer, and I said in my letter, look, I can't afford to advertise on a fish and chip packet, let alone a radio station. So can you give me a hand out? And so she calls me on primetime radio at 8:00 in the morning, and she puts me on the radio. And she goes, this kid's just called up, blah, blah, blah. This is what she does. And so I got 10 minutes on prime radio. And then I had so many calls after that. And I got a call from the 2IC of Australia Post. He rings me up and he goes, I want you to come work for me. And I said, no, I've got my own business. I'm not working for anyone. I don't want a job. I've got my company. I type. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. So he goes, just come for a chat. And then he hired my company to work for him as a secretary, basically. And then he kind of mentored me. He was my first mentor. He hired me, and then he moved me into the IT section. And then he goes, hire someone to replace yourself. So then I hired someone to replace myself in my position. And then he goes, oh, such and such wants a secretary as well. So can you hire someone else for there? I started hiring all these secretaries. So I had about 22 people working for me. When it was about
went into recruitment.
18. Yeah, so I had a little recruitment agency from a typing service. Yeah, that's how I started my first business.
That's unreal. tell me, how did you end up in Hong Kong and then moving into your farmers market business?
So I moved to Hong Kong when I was 29. So my husband got an opportunity to go there. We thought, why not? We'll go, and if he loses his job, we've got no kids or anything, we'll just move home. It was a bit of a why not situation. So we're going for 2 years, and then it's been 15 now living in Asia. It's been a bit. And then whilst I was in Hong Kong, I was on the old dependent visa, so you couldn't work. I had a couple of kids. And then I started an IT company actually in Hong Kong first. I had an IT company for about 8 years, creating websites for people, a lot of charities and things like that. And then I just saw there was a need in the market. The meat in Hong Kong was getting worse and worse. The quality was worse and worse. The price was going up and up. And I just thought to myself, this is crazy. I mean, someone's got to do something about this. Otherwise, it's just going to be so expensive and you can't get anything decent. I thought, just do it myself. Why not just jump in? I had no idea about meat, no idea about the food industry, nothing. But I knew how to make websites. I knew how to make e-commerce work and things like that. So I had that advantage. And then I just had to find out a bit more about the food industry. So I went and did some self-study, and then a meat and science course with Meat Livestock Australia and a few other things. So now I know probably too much about meat.
Did you have imposter syndrome in the beginning, or is that something that you just ignored and pushed out of your head?
No, a little bit. I was sitting in a room in North Sydney actually with Meat Livestock Australia, and I'm in this room and everyone else has got checkered shirts on and jeans and boots and a hat. And I'm sitting there in a suit and shirt and jacket. It's a little bit odd, but yeah.
Like a bit of a fish out of water, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know the difference between different breeds of cows, let alone anything else. But these guys knew nothing about IT and e-commerce, so it was kind of helping each other. So it was really, really good fun.
And how long ago did you start that business?
Farmers Market's been going for about 3.5 years in Hong Kong. And then we opened in Singapore. We've just opened about 8 months ago.
How did the business grow? Did it flourish quite well? Was it slow to start? Was it just booming because there was such a niche market that nobody else was there?
No, at first I only did it for friends. So I created a website within 24 hours because that side was easy. And I just said to my friends, look, this is the site. I've got access to some meat. If you want to buy some, buy some. So they all bought some. And then they were like, oh, can I tell my friend about it? I'm like, yeah, go for it. Because it was just a little internal kind of business. Because I still have my IT company at this stage. So then a couple more friends that knew about it. And then in the end, someone said to me, why don't you do this for real? So I turned it on for everyone. And then it was pretty much just organic. It was word of mouth. Through my sporting network in Hong Kong, people started talking about it, and we just grew from there, grew organically.
And how's it going in Singapore? Is it taking off in the same sort of rate that it did in Hong Kong?
No, at first it was super slow. It's super different markets. Here it's very much price conscious. If someone else's meat's $1 cheaper, they're all over it and they'll dump you in a second. Whereas in Hong Kong, they're a little bit more conscious about the quality of the food and the traceability of the food. So they do a little bit more research. And I'm hoping that's growing in Singapore. Actually, that's one thing how our business has grown through education. So we try and educate people. We don't care if you buy from us or not, but we want you to buy good stuff. So know where it comes from, know where it's eaten, the life it's had, etc.
By educating, are you putting all that information on your website?
Yeah. And then we do live webinars. I've just recently started Monday Meat Minute. So we'll do like a Monday
That's cool
Meat
title.
Minute. Yes. I'll just give certain topics. The other week I did something about knives. Everyone buys like a fancy knife thing, but you have no idea what the hell half of them do. So I just went through and explained what half of them do. So the other thing, explaining how to defrost meat properly. You don't stick it in the sun, you don't stick it in the microwave, otherwise the bacteria grows and then you get food poisoning. Little tips and tricks like that we put out on our Facebook and on YouTube and things.
Oh, that's really great. What a good idea. What are some of the greatest challenges that you faced starting your own business?
Not too many, because I kind of have a go. I've had some businesses that failed and I've had some that have succeeded. The biggest thing I find with other people is starting a business. People are scared to start, whereas I'm not too scared. So I'll start a new business every week. But that's my personality. But
what are people scared of?
They're scared of failure. Failure is a big thing people are scared of. They're scared if I put my site up, no one will come. Who cares if no one comes? If no one comes, you close it and you start something else. But a lot of people are scared that that'll look bad on them. I started a flower company that didn't even get off the ground. There was some special flower bag that we had created. We had big ideas and it was crap. And so we just closed it. so you've got to know that you're going to have failures, but if you don't have values, you don't have success either.
And if you don't take, there's no reward with that risk, and you've got to take that risk. And also, if you have a failure, as long as you learn from it, then it's fine, isn't it? We can learn more from our failures than our successes. This is what
100%.
I tell the kids in teaching all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And the worst thing, if you don't have that failure, you don't know if you're going to fail or succeed. So you're never going to succeed if you don't try.
And do you sometimes feel like you succeed beyond your wildest dreams? Like you just like, what the hell? This is amazing. Like I feel that with my book and my podcast. Like it's just like going crazy, and it's like, wow, this is amazing.
It gets a bit surreal. And then you think, oh, I'm going to retire. And then next week, the same thing
everything comes. Yeah, the virus comes and nobody's going out.
So you got to take success as it comes.
What do you think the most rewarding aspects are of running your own business?
I like the result it brings people, whether it be the food business or IT or whatever. If you set something up or give a product to someone and it makes them happy, that then makes me happy. I get a big kick out of that. I do some mentoring, like we spoke before, with some people, and seeing them succeed, that makes me happy, and that makes me a real feel-good moment.
That's awesome. So tell me a bit more about your mentoring, and how did you get into that, and what does it look like, and who do you typically work with?
Got into it again by accident. That's most of my companies that I start. And it was just like a random. So I was speaking to a girl in Hong Kong who just came to me for advice. I met her at a networking event, and then she approached me and said, can I sit down for an hour with you? And I said, yeah, sure. So I'll sit down with a lot of people, and we'll sit down and they'll tell me their business or their idea for a business, and I'll just give my straight Aussie direct opinion, which is normally it's crap or it's good, and then go from there. And this girl had a really good idea. So she didn't know how to take it from an idea to a business. I just gave her a few pointers and a bit of advice, and now she's going awesome. But typically the people that come to me are normally people that are looking for a sidekick, like a side hustle. So they may be working and they've got an idea, or they're a partner of someone working in Asia and they've got an idea, and they just don't know how to put that idea into an actual business. So they're not going to make zillions of dollars, but they're making enough to pay school fees or pay for the next holiday or pay the rent kind of thing. And that's typically the people I work with. And they've normally just got a good idea and a good passion. You've got to have passion for business.
Do these people just find you through word of mouth, or do you have a mentoring business, like specific business?
Do now, but I don't advertise it because too many clients. But I started Epic Coaching. So my name's Emma Pike, so E Pike, so Epic EPIK.
Great.
Instead of C. So someone else came up with that. I'm not that creative. So I run in Singapore, which will be launching in Hong Kong as well, something called Bullet Networking. So Bullet Networking is kind of like a network charity for me. So I don't make money out of it, but it helps people that want that side hustle to go to another level. I find the biggest thing that helps me with business still is collaborations. And I go to so many network events, and so many of them are a waste of time, because all you do is you pay the fee and you have a few drinks, you get a bit tipsy, you leave with 10 business cards that are normally finance people that you're never going to connect to. And then that's it. You got nothing out of it. You got a couple of drinks and you got to meet some couple of new friends, but that's about it. You didn't get any business out of it. So I started Bullet Networking there's no membership fees or anything, so we don't make any money out of it. But you get 20 people in a room, mostly female entrepreneurs. And those female entrepreneurs all get their 3 minutes of fame to tell us what they do for a living. And then we try and connect them up with other people in that room that they can then collaborate with. I run a meat company, right? So I don't want to come collaborate with another person that runs a meat company, yet they have the prime target market for me. But I will go and collaborate with someone who runs a preschool, right? So, which doesn't sound like a good fit, but preschool have kids, and those kids have parents, and those parents want to feed their children nice food. So that then becomes my target market. So people don't realize who they should collaborate with. They just think, I'm in food, I need to collaborate with food people. No, you don't. You need to collaborate where your target market is. And so Bullet Networking is about teaching people how to do that and how to find those people to collaborate. And then when you find them, what do you do with them? How do you collaborate? How do you do a giveaway? How do you do a list building exercise and things like that? So I started Bullet Networking with another lady in Hong Kong called Nikki, who runs a seasoned Singapore expat women page. And yeah, the two of us do that. So we do interviews, we do live webinars once a fortnight and interview people, and we try and give back to female entrepreneurs.
That's really wonderful. I love the idea of everybody having 3 minutes to sort of pitch who they are, because for some people it's very difficult to get around the whole room and work the whole room and chat to everybody and ask the same questions over and over. And then you're telling your story 20 times to the same people. But if you have a platform where you can speak to the whole group and then connect after that, simple yet brilliant idea.
Yeah. But that's what business should be. It should be simple. A lot of people complicate it too much and they just read into it too much. You don't have to go and pay stupid fees to join some specific networking group that you think may have people in it that you need to connect with. You can connect with someone on a football field, on a tennis court. Half my business is done on a golf course or on a tennis court or a squash court. You know, that's how I make most of my network.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, we have a kind of preconceived notion of what networking should be, but if you flip it on its head, it can work even better for you.
Totally.
So what do you think some of the challenges are that women have to face in leadership roles that men may not have to deal with?
The biggest challenge, especially I've faced, is kind of not being one of the boys, but showing that you're also an expert. Often, especially like me in my world, in the meat world, it's majority male dominated. So if I walk into a room and say, hey, I'm a butcher, everyone goes, oh, yeah, sure you are. And then you're dismissed because you're female. So you have to show your expertise. You have to be an expert in your field. And I think anyone that can show that they're an expert in their field will get treated a lot better and taken more seriously. So if you are going to run a butcher like I am, become an expert in meat. So go and get the education and learn more about it. You're going to become a cake maker, become an expert cake maker. So become an expert in your field helps a lot with females in certain roles.
And what are your core values and how do you implement them in your daily life?
One of my big values is treat people how you would want to be treated, and always growing up. I don't dismiss anybody, whether you've got $1 billion or $2 to your name. So treat people how you want to be treated. And that goes for staff, that goes for customers, that goes for everybody. So that's one thing. And the other thing is probably quality over quantity. I'd rather have 10 really good clients that appreciate what I do than 100 that just want a free ride every now and again and are going to complain about the tiniest little thing. Quality and treating people well. It's probably two core values that I use daily.
Yeah, I think excellent values and that sort of mutual respect is really important wherever you are. And something that I've realized when it's just like the little things make a difference. Like I've got people writing to me about the book and the podcast a lot or making comments. I try to reply to everybody. And I think it's that thing of not getting too big for your boots, isn't it?
Yeah,
not letting your success go to your head and then you get some superior attitude and then you won't connect with people anymore.
100%. And then it's not really you anyway. You're not being authentic. You're just being a pompous brat.
Yeah,
so,
just being a wanker.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you most passionate about outside of work? From talking to you, I get that it looks like you're doing mentoring, you love your sport, you love your family, and you give back to the community with your networking business or your sort of networking charity, really. Do you do any other charity work, and what other things are you passionate about?
Yeah, in Hong Kong, we have a charity of choice called Angels for Orphans, and we've raised over $500,000 for them. So
wow, that's
cool.
Amazing.
It's a good charity run by a friend of mine, Suzanne Sadler, and what they do is they help underprivileged children all around Asia. So we've run some events for them for raising money. I've done an exercise where I did 40 sports before I turned 40 to raise money. So that was quite interesting. I even did synchronized swimming.
Oh, I love synchronized swimming.
So that's it's a very entertaining video, that one. We work with a lot of charities. We work for the Amber Foundation in Singapore and Hong Kong now to help other female entrepreneurs that are underprivileged, that can't afford to go to university or can't afford to start their first business. Yeah, we do beach cleanups. We do heaps of things for charities.
I know that giving back to charities can help others, but what does it do for you as a person and how does it change you?
It's that instinct of helping people. I love helping people. Half the people that come to me for mentoring, I don't even charge because they can't afford it. But I get a real buzz helping someone achieve something, whether it be a charity or a person in business. If I see that something I'm doing is helping make something happen, I just get a buzz out of that.
Isn't that great? So can you share an anecdotal story about somebody that you've really sort of helped turn their life around?
Turn their life around?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or somebody that you've just seen succeed and you felt super proud of them and it's just made you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, there's two. There's a lady in Hong Kong that came to me for some advice after I met her at a network event called Virginia. And she runs a company called Humid with a Chance of Fish Balls.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's been on my podcast twice.
Okay.
Yeah, she's awesome. Great. I love her.
So she came in for a brain dump in my office, must have been 3 years ago, and said, I've got this idea. I think it's a market. I'm not making any money. Can you help me? So I said, sure. So I gave her a few ideas and I sent her off with a list of things to do. And I didn't hear from her for like 6 months. And I thought, oh, she probably didn't do anything. And then I get this phone call. Can I come back for another meeting? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Come on in. So she comes in. She goes, I've done everything on that list and it's awesome and it's working and blah, blah. And she goes, now I need help with this. And I'm like, okay, cool. So she was different. She was a mentor kind of student, but she just went off and did her thing and then came back and got another list and then went off and did that thing. And now she's doing really well.
She is doing so well. Did you know that she was on a Netflix show?
I did. I watched it the other day.
Yeah,
really
isn't that great? Yeah, she's
awesome.
amazing. Very proud of her. She came across absolutely brilliantly. So we did an interview about her Netflix experience just recently.
Oh, yeah. And she came off as an expert in the food tourist. Right?
She absolutely came across as an expert. In fact, they called her a street food expert in the show.
And that's what you've got to do.
So that's a top tip, actually. Just hone your skills, learn as much as you can, become an expert in the area that you're in.
If you're an expert in your field, people will find you. You don't have to go and find them. And that's the biggest tip in business because, if you're an expert, you don't have to have multiple ads saying, I'm an expert in this. If you're an expert and you put educational material out there, people will come find you.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it like that, but that is so true. And that's a great way of looking at it. That's a really...
If you look on YouTube and you Google, how to cook a steak, and you look at the most successful video on there, you're going to then go to that person and subscribe to their channel and go and look at them further, right? They're an expert. They're seen as an expert because they've got so much views. So you just got to get content out there and put yourself out there and be an expert in your field.
It's true. I've become an expert in online dating romance schemes.
Well,
I have.
You can consult about it.
Yeah, I am.
About the tips to do and not to do.
Definitely.
Awesome.
It's going to be my career after I have to finish teaching at 60.
Good. Can't wait.
Yeah. Emma, is there anything that gets you riled up? You seem like such a happy, positive, go-lucky person. Is there anything that winds you up?
There is one thing. I am very happy-go-lucky, very easy. What you see is what you get. But the one thing that does tick me off is probably lazy people. So if someone rings me up and says, what's the weather in Sydney today? Or do I need to take a jumper? I'm like, seriously, there's this thing called Google. You just Google it. So people know that of me now and they won't ask. But laziness really gets me. Even if my kids do it. If my kids leave their plate on the table, I'm like, pick it up. You got the hands, walk over, put it in the sink. So,
because that's something you've never been since you were 9, selling sand on the beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Lazy, you've driven.
I've worked my butt off my whole life. I hate people that think it's easy and they think they deserve it. So I've worked hard with Farmers Market to open in 2 countries and be successful. You don't just open it, it happens.
So what do you think are some of the key skills and talents that you need to be a CEO of a company? I know we've covered a couple of them, but that was sort of related to values. But what about skills?
Communication skills. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know when to lift to a more serious kind of voice and when just to keep it simple. You need to talk to your staff, talk to customers. So communication is key. Leadership is definitely key as well, because if you don't lead by examples, then they'll just do whatever they want to do. So leadership is good. And just knowing what you're doing. If you're going to sell a product or a service, know that product or service extremely well and become that expert.
And I guess also organisational skills would be a key as well. If you're disorganised, it's not going to come together.
I still write my to-do list out on a piece of paper and I still cross it out.
Me too. I have a to-do list and I move it onto the next page of my diary. Like I'm not remotely techie with my diary at all. I still like that satisfaction of ticking it off and seeing all the ticks. I show my kids at school my diary and say, look, without this, I could not be organised. Like it's just filled with things to do. And if I lost that once and I was like in a panic, I put out an APB all over school until somebody found it in some random place for me. But I was like, oh my God, my life is going to fall apart. Do you think that these skills of a leader or a CEO can be learned, or do you think they're innate, or do you think it's a bit of both?
I think a bit of both. You can go and work for someone and have these skills and work as an employee for someone quite easily. But to run your own business, you need a couple of extra things. You need a bit of grit. You need just a bit of a courage.
Yeah, I was going to just say fearlessness. Yeah.
Yeah. You can have leadership skills and be a CEO of a company and work for someone else, because then you don't have the responsibilities of the company. And if you're going to have your own company, then you need a few extras. And most of those few extras is just a bit of fearless. Just have a go, because you don't know if something is going to fail until you do it. Okay, so if you don't do it, you don't know if it's going to succeed or fail. I've had heaps of failures. God, I put an ad out that I had to remove within 2 hours, which I can't tell you what it was, but it wasn't the best ad. You have those moments, but I wouldn't have known if I didn't try it. And now I know
it's okay to make mistakes. This is the thing. It's almost like we're conditioned that we're not allowed to fail and that we've got to be successful and perfect all the time. Whereas in actual fact, life is just not like that. And in actual fact, everybody is imperfect in some way, and it's about learning, as we said before.
And a lot of people come to me and they go, I can't launch because my website's not right. Your website's never going to be right. Okay, I'm telling you that now. My website's still not right, but it's functional. It works. So launch, and then you can fix it as you go.
Exactly. How do you maintain your positive attitude during stressful times and high pressure times? Because you must have them as an owner of your own business.
I mean, sometimes I look at my bank account and I've spent too much in marketing or spent too much on something else, and you start to have a bit of a panic attack because you've now got your other bills to pay. It does get quite stressful. To be honest, just look on the bright side and think, yeah, but it will get better. There will be money coming in. There will be people buying online, and just look towards something that's positive. Often if I'm in a bad mood or if something's happened that I can't change, just think you can't change it, right? So there's no point dwelling on it. I read a good golf book that said, if you hit a bad shot and you think about that bad shot the whole way around the next 17 holes, that's going to affect the rest of your game. Whereas you can't change that one shot, and that one shot's going to affect your whole game. So if something bad in business happens, you can't change that, right? So there's no point dwelling on it, because then it's going to affect the rest of your day, the rest of your week or whatever. So put it in the past and just step forward and then move on to the next thing. And I normally, if I'm in that situation, I look at 2 things on my to-do list, and I look at my to-do list and I pick the 2 things that I would get the most joy out of doing, or something that will impact my business the most. And I do those 2 things first. And then that kind of puts me in a better mood, and I don't think about how much money I don't have.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. No, I really like that idea of recognizing that something's gone to crap and then moving on from it. Don't dwell on it. I think that's a really good way of overcoming setbacks, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't change it.
And it's easier said than done sometimes, but I guess you practice it, don't you? You practice this skill and you try and catch yourself if you're dwelling, and you try to change your mindset.
Especially as a business owner, you're going to get that happening every day in the beginning. You're just going to get setbacks. The courier didn't turn up. You're running out of stock. Something's happening every day. And if you dwell on that, you're just not going to have a successful business.
Do you find that you manage your setbacks better when you are eating well, you're sleeping well, and you're looking after your well-being?
Definitely. And most mornings I'll get up and I'll go for an hour walk just to clear my head and think about what I've got to do for the day.
That's what I need to be doing.
It's really good. It's really good. It's really good. But you've got to get up early before work.
Oh, yeah.
But so it clears your head, and then you come back, you have a nice breakfast, and you're good for the day.
Yeah, that's great. Emma, what's your greatest fear?
It is failure, same as most people out there. Failure, in a way, yes. I hate failing. I hate not being the best at something, and that's my competitiveness in me. Growing up playing sport and everything else, I've been super competitive. You can ask my sister. Not being the best at something or failing at something does work on my mind a little bit.
That's understandable, given that you run a business, and that to run a business you need to succeed. But I can see that sort of competitive thing in myself, being another sporty Aussie girl as well. Like, I think it does come from that drive, and competitiveness definitely comes from all the sport as a kid.
But the competitiveness and the sport side helps. It helps to be competitive in business. It gives you that extra drive. You want to achieve something. So it does help get you through it.
Absolutely. It helps you take those risks that you might not normally take, because you take the risk on the netball court or on the hockey field or whatever.
And then you sprain your ankle and you're out for 6 months. But
Then you work out how to do painting or knitting. What are your thoughts on vulnerability? Is it important to be vulnerable? Is it natural to be vulnerable?
Yeah, totally natural. As long as you don't get taken advantage of, right? And you know this, right?
Read my book for me twice.
So everybody's vulnerable. To try and have a little bit of a guard up. Not too much, but so you've still got to be approachable, but be aware that some people are out there to take advantage of you. And some people are out there to take a little bit of what you've got.
But would you drop your bundle or show your vulnerability within the workplace, or would you save
No.
that for more private?
No, I'd save it for private. Definitely.
Oh, that's interesting. I would drop it wherever.
No, I'd walk away and then have a massive spat somewhere else. Mostly vulnerability.
I cried in front of 300 kids once when I was running Diwali Ball, and they were all being terrible, and I was doing it on my own, and I was just like, this is real life. This is what I'm doing. People are taking advantage of me. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. They were all like, one girl's like, Miss Hannaford, do you want to go outside? I'm like, no.
It happens.
It's a life lesson for them. I think it was a good thing. I didn't even regret it afterwards. I don't feel that there's any problem with showing my emotions.
No,
Yeah.
and everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's interesting because I'm educating kids. So I think that that's part of what they need to know, is that it's okay to show your emotions. Whereas you're leading a business where you need to sort of put across a certain persona to have the respect or the control or whatever. So it's interesting the different fields we're in. And I think maybe that's linked to how we operate when it comes to vulnerability.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. Who was your hero and why?
Okay, I get asked this a lot.
Do you?
And every interview I do with magazines, I get asked this. And it's not who people think. I could say Michelle Obama, I could say Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, all fantastic people. But they're all got money, they're all celebrities, they give back to charity, they're awesome. But I kind of, some of my heroes are people like, I don't know if you know Heather Dayton in Hong Kong. So Heather's been in Hong Kong, God, 40 plus years. And one of my passions is squash, and same with her. So she's worked for Hong Kong Squash, she's worked for World Squash, and she does so much for squash, it's not funny. And squash is still not an Olympic sport, and she's still fighting for it to be an Olympic sport. So someone like that dedicates their life, not for money, but for a passion, is someone that I have a high respect for. So Heather is definitely up on my list.
So interesting, because that is reflected in the way that you operate and give back to young female entrepreneurs in particular in your mentoring. That's so interesting. I think the connection between your hero and also the heroic work that you are doing for others out of the goodness of your heart, which is really nice.
Never looked at it like that, but yeah.
Well, there you go. See, those other journalists weren't thinking outside the box. Not that I'm calling myself a journalist, I'm a podcaster. No. So what advice would you have, Emma, for anybody wanting to start their own business but not having the courage or the know-how to get started?
I'd say just have a go. If you've got a passion for something, have a go, because otherwise you're never going to know. Okay, so it's never going to be the right time. Someone will say, oh, but the virus is going around. That's fine. So think outside the square. People are doing PT lessons online now. They've thought outside the square. They're still making money. So there is money to be made, whether that's something you want or you just want to be successful. It's not all about money. So there's never going to be a right time. The right time is now. If you've got an idea, you don't have to quit your job to have a company. You can have your job, have a side hustle, and just play in the water, tread light. And then if it's successful, then you can quit your job and take it full blown. But there's never going to be a right time. So my biggest advice for someone thinking about starting a business is start. Have a go.
Right. Perfect. Emma, just to finish up, what are your hopes for your future?
For my future? Well, I don't know. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants most of the time. I'm hoping farmers market's still successful in the future. I'd love to open in Dubai and Thailand in the next couple of years, so then become Asia's biggest online butcher. That's a possibility. I'd like to take my mentoring and coaching skills further. So I'll probably start some retreats and do some things like that to help entrepreneurs kind of get off the ground and
sounds
get going.
Awesome. How brilliant.
Yeah, so just have a bit of fun.
Emma, if my listeners want to get in touch with you for mentoring or they want to check out your website for your farmers market, how can they do that?
Yeah, just Google farmers market. I think we should be first up, farmersmarket.com.hk, or if you're listening in Singapore, .com.sg. Bullet networking is a great way to get in touch. That's networking events and webinars that we do. So you can sign on and we'll send you some emails and you can join our free webinars with that. Otherwise,
join that.
Good. You like it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe we'll interview you one day.
Yeah. Brilliant.
just drop me an email. I mean, you'll find me all over the place. Find me on Facebook, find me on my websites. Just Google Emma Pike.
Great. And I'll put your contact details in the show notes as well. So, Emma, thank you so much for this interview today. It's been so interesting and eye-opening, and congratulations on all your success and all that you're doing for others as well. It's really inspirational, and I just think you are the bomb.
Good. Thanks for having me. It's been great this morning, and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you very much. So for my listeners out there, if you've really enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends and family. If you could go to iTunes to rate and review us, it'll help get me up the iTunes charts and also help people find out more about Emma and her business and her mentoring. And for my patrons, what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Emma 4 secret questions, and that's going to be on patreon.com/Hong Kong Confidential. And for as little as $1 a month, you can sponsor Hong Kong Confidential, and Fool Me Twice, by the way, on Patreon. And you can get to listen to Emma's secret questions and also the secret questions of about my last 15 guests. So go to Patreon, patreon.com, and search for Hong Kong Confidential and sponsor the podcast. That would be amazing. So thank you very much, Emma. And we're going to do our little secret questions now. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.